We talked about this a lot over the Good Morning Walk. Who could be, shall we say, the big replacement to Boris Johnson? Who will be his successor? And who could indeed it be? Well, if you look at the polls in terms of popularity, Liz Truss comes smack bang first place by a country mile. Now, of course, the big question is will she stand? And given how she has reacted in the past couple of weeks, it is very, very clear that she is absolutely on maneuvers, ready to strike should Johnson, shall we say, time come. And as the article says, the Tory vultures are indeed circling. They know that, shall we say, the animal is dying and they are ready to feast, but they will only feast when the beast of Boris is finally dead and ready to give up the ghost. But needless to say, it's been a very interesting week that has morphed how the Conservative Party has reacted to its leader. And of course, we've already seen such things as leading Conservatives already come out and say that they have lost Owen Paterson's seat. The vote hasn't even happened yet, but they're already declaring that they've lost. That tells you everything you need to know that is possibly going to happen very early next year. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a very, shall we say, interesting Christmas gift from Boris Johnson. But before we do go jumping into the article, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. So, on with the article. This comes from The Guardian with the title of "The Tory vultures are circling, but they will only feast when Johnson's time is up." Last week marked a very fundamental shift in the way the Conservatives relate to their leader. They are now upset and feel betrayed by Boris Johnson. But that's not the most dangerous feeling. After all, most MPs who backed him did so knowing that he had a very tenuous relationship with the truth and that he would very happily turn over others in order to survive. No, the bigger change is that Tory MPs are now actively discussing who could be the next big winner, as they no longer have confidence in the Prime Minister's relationship with the electorate. The vultures are circling, and there are plenty of potential leadership candidates visible. From the very prominent cabinet ministers holding dinners with ambitious young MPs who they hope will join their campaigns to outsiders who've been biding their time on the backbenches. They also know that the Prime Minister is wounded enough for them to fly a little closer than previously. They see the polls indicating, even today's for The Observer, that has the Tory party on its lowest share of the vote since August of 2019 at just 32%. Johnson's approval ratings are at an all-time low. We've been on the doorstep in North Shropshire, where voters are already angry before the news broke about the partying in Downing Street last week. And they've had more than enough flack from their own constituency ascensions to know that the government is no longer being given the benefit of the doubt. Even MPs who still think Johnson is the person to back for now accept that the Christmas party row has had a huge cut through. My constituencies have brought it up. Yes, the conceived one loyalist, but often just ridiculing me for not getting an invite. Perhaps even more worryingly, a number of Conservative MPs report a very number of failing trust in the vaccine programme. One who had previously been a Johnson supporter and still wants the PM to do well tells me this: "I've been getting emails from pro-vaxxers saying, 'I've just had my third injection in a matter of months. What more do you want from me?' This should be very serious concerns for Johnson because he has been banking on the goodwill from the success of the vaccine programme. It seems that many have taken so much political credit from one thing that this has gone well for the government and now he's in the red." One MP who understands the party says this: There's a view that the line has been crossed, and it's about complacency and respect for the office of the Prime Minister. Some MPs might not even care about either of those things if Johnson is still capable of at least keeping their party in government. But the problem is they aren't sure about that either. He's like the used car salesman who sticks glue in the tank in order to stop the car knocking. You don't go back to that salesman to buy another car, do you? Another senior Tory explains it like this. They thought he was this magic natural born winner, but the magic is pretty shaky and it's not going to stop being shaky. His judgment is so poor, and it's a clear pattern here that at least three things: Dominic Cummings, Owen Paterson, and now the Christmas party, which creates a very clear narrative that rather than sense that these are one-off events, they now know that there will always be a next one. The question now is, how many next ones will there be before the vultures swoop? Are they carrion birds only feasting when the game is over rather than killing off live prey? None of them thinks that this has actually reached that stage yet. When, of course, Johnson's government's Plan B measures coming before the Commons this week, Johnson will be further wounded. At least 60 Conservative MPs have said that they are not going to support the measures, which indicate that vaccine passports, again, Johnson has had by aggravated by the rebels by thinking aloud about the possibility of mandatory vaccines by introducing the restrictions at an earlier stage of the spread of the Omicron variant than he had previously indicated. Previous revolts have left a majority of the Conservative MPs, even those who still plan to back the government on Tuesday, without any confidence in the assurance of the Prime Minister that this really will be the last time he turns off the economy to stop a new wave of COVID infections. They expect that in the new year, they will be asked once again to march through the lobbies supporting an even tighter, even less liberal measures. Even if the Tories do lose North Shropshire by-election, that is not the prospect of an imminent vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister. For one thing, his opponents know that if they came now, he would probably win in the same way Theresa May, who was visibly weaker than him, won hers. One says, I want him to go, but now would be the wrong time to reach the threshold of letters calling for a no confidence vote. Even Boris Johnson supporters tell me they have given him at least 3 months to try and turn things around before it's too late. There might be still too short of a time frame for some of the vultures, but we need to think a little longer to try and shore up support. Backers of Rishi Sunak, for instance, think that he needs to show that he has more experience before there is a chance of him winning a leadership contest. He and the Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, have been conspiring and dining backbenchers, though they have largely kept their operations deniable by restricting these meals to at least the 2019 intake of MPs, therefore enabling them to say that they're just getting to know their new colleagues. Truss, of course, is the most popular in the leadership league tables, but many Conservatives have been very bewildered by a recent photo shoot on a tank in Estonia. That went down very badly in the tea room, reports one MP. It's almost hearsay. It's almost heresy, so to say, to try and pass yourself off as Thatcher in such an obvious way. Allow other people to draw that comparisons rather than doing it so nakedly yourself. It seems trying to dress up as Margaret Thatcher is tantamount in Tory circles to an offence of impersonating a police officer. It's also the thing you do if you've not had to make any serious decisions yet, snipes another backbencher. Truss and Sunak, of course, aren't the only vultures. Indeed, one of the blessings for the Prime Minister is the sheer number of hopeful replacements in the skies above him. There's no Dufan, explains a Conservative. A majority of people who don't know who to switch to. The right of the party has been talking up Dominic Raab as their possible candidate. Some MPs report the Education Secretary, Nadhim Zawad, and of course, being particularly audacious in the tea room. And of course, the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, has made it known that he will be, quote, upset by the video of Downing Street staffers joking about their partying exploits. Others like him weigh Tom Tugnett, the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, But he's built a very serious profile for himself outside, but he hasn't built a very serious profile for himself outside of government. Johnson still does have, of course, his cabinet backers. Despite the list of very ambitious ministers above, some are very exasperated about the wider party doesn't understand that the vaccine passport have to be measured as a method of behavioural change into getting those who are hesitant to take up the jab and lead to the end of the restrictions rather than years of disruption. Others will think that the problem lies in his staff team. Those that are left anyway. When Allegra Stratton quit last week, the knives were also out for the number 10's comms chief, Jack Doyle, who was given the responsibility for the government untenable messaging about the party he had reportedly attended while Stratton chose to go home. Many MPs are also annoyed with the Johnson's chief of staff, Dan Rosefield, who they think has no understanding of how the party works. And of course, the Prime Minister has also managed to alienate many of those people who backed him when he wasn't even a dead cert to win the Tory leadership. He's not shown such a degree of loyalty to anyone who was close to him on the leadership, says such an early supporter. But he has shown immense loyalty to people who even weren't involved, like Hancock and Rabb. He's lost all of us, like Jake Berry, Robert Jerrick, and so on. If Jerrick had been in government, he would have been the one to go out and defend him last week. But no one else did. But he's even dropped him too. Even if Downing Street has a relaunch in the new year with a new staff and a better comms operation, Johnson won't have changed. That was one of the things that attracted the Tories and the voters to him in the first place. He's not someone who brands himself according to the political weather, but he is his own man who doesn't care if people see his flaws. But that attribute can be in itself a flaw because MPs don't have faith in what he will become, someone they can actually ever trust again. And he is so used to getting away with it that he doesn't even seem to realize how vulnerable he is. There is the real risk that he could end up in a Theresa May situation of him being in number 10 and not in power for over a year, warns another supporter. But May was in that position because she lost the Tory majority in an election. It would be quite something if Johnson ended up with the same troubles from her, same as her, from the comfort of being a winner. Again, this, like I say, is very, very interesting. And this does spell some very interesting times because we've said it before on this channel. I don't know how many times. The Conservative Party has become ungovernable because of all the factions and all the groups that have now come up fighting against each other. There are the Tory moderates. There are the Camerites. There are the Mayites. There's no such thing as a Johnsonite because Johnson's never stood for anything. You've then got the far right-wing libertarians of the ERG and so forth. You then have the very much caught in the middle while trying to very much distance themselves from being, looking like a Tory, the new Northern Research Group. And there are more groups in there as well. The COVID Recovery Group, the Culture Warriors. This is going to be interesting. This could get very interesting, I think, very quickly. And I think that the more scandals roll forward, and trust me, this is Boris Johnson, there's another scandal on the way. It's just, when do these vultures go in for the swoop? And as was said at the end of that article, Boris Johnson could find himself in the exact same position as Theresa May. Someone who has won a massive Conservative majority, but doesn't have the power. Needless to say, the Johnson years in Downing Street have turned out to be very, very interesting. And just like anyone else, I've said during the May years, I would love to read books about insiders. Again, hence why we've ended up with this. But he wasn't really an insider. It will be very, very interesting, to say the least, when we start to see some books about Boris Johnson's time as Prime Minister, going over those very tumultuous years for him. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next